My life, for the better part of a decade, existed in the shadow of my family's relentless, casually cruel condescension. I, Clara Hayes, was the sensible, stable, and utterly unsuccessful daughter, according to my mother, Carol. Carol was a woman whose entire identity was a tightly wound spool of perceived social status, a status she had decided I was permanently disqualified from achieving. My younger brother, Ethan, was the designated golden child, a man whose charm was as flimsy as his commercial real estate portfolio. He drove a leased German luxury sedan and spoke with loud, performative confidence about deals and investments that rarely materialized into actual income. I, meanwhile, worked remotely as a technical writer, or so they believed, quietly paying rent on a tiny, third-floor walk-up on a decidedly non-prestigious block in Lincoln Park. Every Sunday dinner at my parents' house was a form of passive-aggressive performance art, culminating inevitably in my humiliation. My mother would corner me next to the untouched sterling silver candelabra, her voice lowered to a theatrical whisper designed to carry just far enough. Another year, Clara, and still no word on a management role? Surely you can aspire higher than writing manual guides for software no one uses. Your skill set is so niche. Ethan would then swoop in, jaw working hard on a thick slice of prime rib, a cut I definitely couldn't afford on my reported salary. She's happy, Mom. She just prefers a simple life. Not everyone can handle the hustle, right, sis? He'd say, clapping me on the shoulder with a patronizing air of fraternity. The irony was a lead weight in my gut. Ethan was the one who, just last Christmas, had begged me for $8,000, claiming it was for a surefire crypto investment. It turned out that investment was a 5-star hotel in Cabo for him and his wife Olivia. I lent him the money, not out of generosity, but out of a desperate, naive hope that helping him would finally earn me a sliver of respect. He never mentioned the debt again, but he constantly boasted about his passive income streams. Olivia, my sister-in-law, was the true high priestess of their social religion. Her expressions toward me ranged from bored tolerance to outright disdain whenever she dared look at my practical, well-worn clothes or my sensible Honda. She was the one who truly defined me as the family failure, the pity in her carefully sculpted eyebrows a heavier weight than any rent bill. What none of them knew, what none of them bothered to ask, blinded as they were by their own assumptions, was that 2 years prior, I had launched a small, bespoke consulting firm specializing in optimizing complex financial workflows for mid-sized fintech companies. I ran it under a completely separate LLC, kept the books airtight, and managed my expansion in total secrecy. The technical writing gig was just cover, a simple low-stress facade that allowed me to spend my days building a scalable software as a service (SaaS) product and an exclusive consulting practice that became explosively profitable faster than I could have imagined. The year I turned 34, my company hit a financial milestone that allowed me to do something audacious. Buy the home of my dreams. Not just a dream home, but a deliberate, impossible statement designed to silence every sneer I'd ever endured. The property was a penthouse unit in the prestigious Aura Tower, a gleaming skyscraper that defined the new edge of the Chicago skyline. 45th floor. Panoramic windows wrapped around the entire living space, giving unobstructed, breathtaking views of Lake Michigan that shifted colors every hour, from slate gray to bruised purple and electric blue. The kitchen was a masterpiece of imported Italian Carrara marble and Miele appliances. It wasn't just a home. It was a sanctuary of steel and glass, a deliberate, physical rebuttal to every dismissive remark my family had ever made about my ambition. I closed on it quietly, moving my few belongings in during a 2-day frenzy, telling my mother I was taking a short, writing retreat, upstate. I decided to throw a housewarming party. This wasn't merely a celebration. It was an emotional stress test. It was the olive branch offered from an undeniable position of strength. I wanted to see if, when confronted with irrefutable proof of my success, they could finally look past their deeply ingrained prejudices and just be proud. I poured every ounce of my new, refined aesthetic into the event. I hired Chef Julian, a well-known local culinary artist, to cater delicate canapés, miniature crab cakes, truffle arancini, and lobster salad cones. I ordered multiple cases of expensive French Prosecco and a high-end Sauternes, the kind of drinks that bubbled with ambition and status. I spent $500 on custom, minimalist digital invitations with gold foil accents, sent personally to my mother, Ethan, and Olivia. The event was scheduled for a prime Saturday evening, starting at 7 p.m. The invitations went out 10 days before the event. The silence that followed was familiar, heavy, and immediate. My mother, Carol, finally replied after 3 days, not with excitement but with patronizing pity. "A Saturday night, dear? That's quite a prime time for a little party, isn't it? Well, we'll try to squeeze you in between our actual engagements." Ethan simply confirmed with a single non-committal K, and Olivia, predictably, never replied at all. I pushed the anxiety down, focusing obsessively on the details of the event. I convinced myself that their awe, when they finally saw the scale of the Aura Tower unit, would override their past disdain. On the day of the party, I was a coiled spring of hope and terror. I dressed in a simple, elegant navy silk dress that cost more than Ethan's entire suit, and had my hair professionally styled. By 5 p.m., Chef Julian had the apartment smelling of garlic and basil, truffles and expensive cheese. The crystal glasses gleamed under the recessed lighting. The lights of the city were starting to turn on, promising a breathtaking cinematic backdrop. 7 p.m. came and went. A few close, trusted professional colleagues arrived, their genuine enthusiasm for the apartment making my heart swell. But my eyes kept tracking my phone. 7:30 p.m. 8 p.m. The canapés were untouched. The expensive wine was chilling, waiting for the one group of people I truly wanted to impress, the people whose approval I was still, humiliatingly, seeking. My father, bless his cowardly, conflict-averse heart, had called earlier with a sudden, vague excuse about a migraine, something my mother clearly engineered. Then at 8:15 p.m., as the sunset was painting the sky over Lake Michigan in shades of bruised purple and gold, the ping came. It was a group text from my mother, Carol. Short, curt, and designed for maximum emotional injury. "Clara. So sorry, dear. Olivia's boss suddenly moved his annual benefit gala cocktail hour up, and you know how important status is for Ethan's networking. We simply can't miss this. You understand, status obliges. Perhaps we can swing by for a quick hour on a Tuesday evening next month? Hope your little apartment party goes well." I read the text 3 times, standing in the center of a $3 million apartment that my family clearly dismissed as a little apartment. The phrase "status obliges" felt like a physical blow to my chest. They hadn't just stood me up, they had openly, actively snubbed me, prioritizing some vague social function over my single most significant life milestone, purely because they assumed my life wasn't worth their time. The profound ache of rejection turned instantly into ice-cold, righteous fury. The last flicker of hope was extinguished, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt since I launched my company. I walked over to Chef Julian, who looked concernedly at the untouched catering trays. "Chef," I said, my voice steady, "please box up the remaining canapés for the staff, and help yourself to a bottle of this Prosecco. Thank you for your magnificent work. The party is over." After my few colleagues and the catering staff left around 9:30 p.m., I walked through the silent, glittering apartment, the echo of my own footsteps the only sound. The massive windows showed a Chicago that now seemed like an enemy. I didn't cry. Instead, I grabbed my professional-grade mirrorless camera. I spent the next hour taking meticulous, high-resolution photographs. A shot of the perfectly empty dining table set with crystal, a close-up of the untouched truffle canapés, and a dramatic wide shot of the spectacular, million-dollar view with a single, perfectly chilled bottle of Prosecco standing alone on the marble countertop. I posted the series to my private Instagram, with a single cryptic caption: "A perfect evening of self-made solitude." The next morning, the texts poured in, not congratulations but patronizing inquiries. "Ethan, rough night, huh? See, I told you those things are tough to pull off." Carol: "Oh dear. Did no one come? That's just so sad. Don't worry, we'll tell people we were there." They interpreted my empty table photos as proof of my spectacular social failure. Validation that I was exactly where they always placed me, below them. I ignored them. I let their assumptions bake into their worldview for 2 more days. On Tuesday morning, the real party started. My public life was still the quiet technical writer, But my professional life was governed by my new, powerful identity. I had an exclusive interview scheduled that week with the Midwest Entrepreneur, a major regional business publication that specialized in profiling successful founders. I had given them the full, unvarnished story of my company's quiet rise. The article hit the newsstands and the web on Thursday morning. The headline screamed, bold and undeniable. From startup scrimper to Aura Tower owner, Clara Hayes' silent success fuels multi-million-dollar fintech consultancy. The accompanying photograph was me, standing on the 45th floor terrace of the Aura Tower, sunlight gleaming off the glass and the city sprawling far beneath my feet. The article detailed my company's valuation, my recent significant real estate investment, and quoted me, somewhat cheekily, on the benefits of working in a distraction-free, high-altitude environment where the noise of the lower levels can't reach you. The effect was instantaneous and nuclear. My phone went into meltdown. The stream of texts was no longer patronizing. It was frantic, desperate, and sickeningly sweet. Carol, Mother Clara. My God, the paper. The Aura Tower. Why didn't you tell us, darling? We are so proud. That apartment looks absolutely breathtaking. Ethan, brother, holy cow, sis. 45th floor. That's insane. We need to celebrate. Forget Tuesday, we are free this weekend. I always knew you had this hustle in you. We need to grab lunch. My best client saw that article. Olivia, sister-in-law Clara, please call me. We need to talk about that view. That marble is unbelievable. I simply must see it. We are so sorry about Saturday. That charity thing was a total bust. Honestly, no one important was there, and we left early. Their words dripped with palpable avarice, the complete and total erasure of their previous contempt. They weren't apologizing for the snub. They were panicking about missing the status train. They were terrified that their failure to attend the housewarming would be perceived as a failure to recognize a major player, damaging their reputation in their own fragile social circles. They were scrambling to reconnect to my coattails. I waited 12 hours, allowing the panic to fester. I finally replied, choosing a quiet, non-committal tone. I agreed to a very informal, modest brunch that Sunday morning at 11 a.m. I told them to keep it extremely low-key, just coffee and store-bought pastries. They arrived at 10:55 a.m. sharp that Sunday. They were dressed in clothes that screamed wealthy. Olivia in a shimmering, tight designer silk dress, Ethan in a suit that looked slightly too tight, probably dry-cleaned in a rush. Their anxiety, however, screamed rented. Olivia was carrying a pathetic bottle of cheap grocery store Cabernet wrapped in a ribbon. A truly transparent and pathetic housewarming gesture. The moment they stepped off the private elevator and into the polished, open foyer, their mouths literally dropped open. Their eyes darted everywhere. The 14-foot ceilings, the museum-quality art I'd purchased, the way the light hit the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the entire city into their personal diorama. My mother recovered first, plastering on a dazzling, false smile. Clara, darling. It's magnificent. Why on earth did you keep this a secret from your family? You never asked, Mom. I replied calmly, my voice flat. You were always busy telling me where I should be, not where I was. The tour began. I led them slowly, deliberately, through the apartment. I paused at the marble-clad kitchen. This is Italian Carrara, I noted, running my hand lightly over the cool surface. The kind that stains if you use anything less than filtered water. I pointed out the Miele induction range. Expensive, but it's important to have the right tools, you know? For the simple life. Ethan was practically vibrating, rubbing his hands together. The views. Oh man, the views, Clara. I could totally see us doing business here. Think of the clients we could impress. Maybe a little corporate dinner? I can introduce you to my contacts. This isn't a business space, Ethan, I said, continuing the tour, emphasizing the private, residential nature of the fortress. We moved to the living room, which was anchored by a vast, custom-made velvet sectional facing the spectacular windows. I asked them to take a seat, which they did, perching awkwardly on the expensive upholstery, suddenly intimidated by the scale of my success. I brought them each a modest mug of black coffee and a simple store-bought croissant, placing the cheap wine bottle they brought on a small side table, clearly indicating its lack of importance. The contrast between the lavish surroundings and the meager brunch I served them was stark and deliberate. I sat opposite them, sipping my coffee slowly, the silence growing heavy, weighted by their unspoken agenda. How can we profit from this? Finally, my mother broke, her voice strained. Clara, honey. About Saturday. We feel just terrible. We should have come. Olivia's charity dinner. It was such a misunderstanding. We really value you. I placed my mug down gently on the glass coffee table. I looked directly at my mother, then at Ethan, and finally at Olivia, whose smile was now brittle and strained, her face tight with impatience. I know it was a misunderstanding, Mom. You misunderstood who I am. You always have, and that was the point of the housewarming. It was a test, and you failed it spectacularly. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a low, measured tone that compelled their complete attention. You called my lifelong achievement a little apartment party. You decided that your perceived status at a charity gala you didn't even want to attend was more valuable than the biggest milestone of my adult life. I waited here, standing in a $3 million sanctuary I created with my own effort, watching the clock tick from 7 p.m. to 8:15 p.m., realizing that you, my family, couldn't even fake pride for one evening. I pointed to the vast window showing the city, now bright with Sunday morning sun. You forfeited this. You forfeited the chance to simply be happy for me because you were too busy validating your own fragile social standing. You used the word status obliges. You were absolutely right, Mom. Status obliges me now to be ruthlessly honest and to close my doors. I paused for dramatic effect, letting the weight of the moment settle on their greedy, stunned faces. This apartment, this view, this level of peace, it is a fortress I built. It is not a communal space. It is not an office for Ethan to impress his clients. It is certainly not a revolving door for Olivia to show off to her friends. I looked directly at Ethan. You owe me $8,000, Ethan. You took that money under false pretenses and used it for a vacation while you publicly shamed me for my lack of success. That debt, like your contempt, has been a festering wound. I reached into my handbag, pulling out a small, heavy, and visibly dirty cloth pouch. A canvas bag I used for laundry change in my old walk-up. I opened it and let the contents spill onto the pristine Italian marble coffee table. $8,000, not in a bank transfer, not in crisp hundreds, but in a chaotic, embarrassing mess of $20 bills. Singles and loose change, some of it clearly dirty and crumpled. There is your $8,000, Ethan, I said, pushing the pile toward him with my foot, the loose coins clattering offensively on the marble. I paid you back, exactly the way you treated the debt, with contempt and disregard for presentation. You are now whole, but our ledger is closed. I stood up, signaling the absolute end of the meeting. The family was frozen, shocked by the money, the public display of their financial shame, and the cold, unyielding finality of my words. Get up, I ordered, my voice quiet but commanding. The brunch is over. You came for the Aura Tower, but what you got was a very clear view of the real Clara Hayes. You will not be invited back. You will not call me for favors. You will not use my name for status. You chose your status over your family member, and now, status obliges you to live with the consequences of that choice. They scrambled out, humiliated and utterly defeated, not even meeting my eyes as they grabbed their belongings and that pathetic bottle of wine. I watched the private elevator doors slide shut on their panicked, grasping faces, descending back into the world they valued so highly. I walked over to the windows looking down at the city. My heart was pounding, but the deep, long-held knot of resentment had finally dissolved. The peace that settled over the apartment was better than any view, better than any prosecco. I had bought my dream home, and my family never came, but the day they finally did was the day I truly became free. The price of that freedom was burning the bridge, but standing in my sanctuary of glass and marble, I knew it was the best investment I had ever made.